How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we're here with Fantasy Football Friday for Week 2 of the 2019-2020 season. But before we get started, a couple of things. Number one, I'm still sick. I'm trying my best. I went to the doctor the other day. I got some good medicine. I'm just taking it, doing what I got to do to get better. And, yeah, I mean, my voice is sounding a little bit better. Hopefully I don't a whole lot on the video, but you know, hanging in there. Another thing, I do want to talk about this little piece of news before I get in the Fantasy Football Friday. So, Minkah Fitzpatrick has gotten permission to seek a trade. So there was an article that came out last week after the Miami Dolphins lost 59-10 to the Baltimore Ravens, and a lot of players were upset, contacting their agents about seeking a trade and getting the hell out of Miami. Minkah Fitzpatrick is one of those players, and the Miami Dolphins have given him permission to request, a trade partner. Apparently the package that Miami wants for him is borderline ridiculous, according to some sources in the league. We'll see if a deal gets done within the next week or so. Maybe it gets done after this game. Who knows? Who knows if he even suits up, this week. But overall, we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty high on Minkah Fitzpatrick. I actually made an article in my Facebook group, or a big-ass post, basically, about how he could be the next Devin McCourty for that defense. If he ain't there, he can't be Devin McCourty, but depending on the situation he goes to, I still think he's going to be a very good player in this league. It's all about development and kind of finding his place. So best of luck to Minkah Fitzpatrick on, wherever he gets traded to. Now let's get into Fantasy Football Friday, ladies and gentlemen. You already know we start off hot, we start off positive, and this video was well received last time, and I'm hoping we can, get some more views on it because it did very good last week. Let's go ahead and get into the stardoms. Starting off with the quarterback position, we're going to go to Pittsburgh, and we're going to say start Ben Roethlisberger at home against Seattle. If you've been watching the NFL for multiple years, you know that Ben Roethlisberger is a better home quarterback than road quarterback. Last week I said sit Ben Roethlisberger against New England. That ended up paying off. This week I'm saying start him. Start Ben Roethlisberger. He's at home against Seattle. Seattle's defense kind of concerns me a little bit. I know it's early in the year and they get their shit situated by October, like mid-October. But for right now, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Put Big Ben in against Seattle. Now for running back number 1, I gotta make this one's gonna be obvious. I mean, there is gonna be a couple obvious ones on here, but start Saquon against the Buffalo Bills defense. Their run defense is still not that good, even though they made some good draft picks over the years. Their run defense in a nutshell still isn't good. Le'Veon Bell had his way last week. I think Saquon with more carries ought to do a lot of damage in the home opener for the New York Giants. Luckily, the Bills don't have to move anywhere, because they played in that same stadium against the New York Jets. So really, it's a home game kind of for both teams, but not really. But Saquon gets my start. And for RB number 2, I'm going to go with Kerryon Johnson. Didn't have a good week last week for fantasy owners, but against the LA Chargers, who do, they just don't have a good run defense. Jerry Tillery, like we talked about, he's more of a pass-rushing defensive tackle. Not really going to be the greatest in run defense. I think Kerryon Johnson has himself a day in the home opener against the LA Chargers. At wide receiver, this one's going to be obvious, but start Michael Thomas against the LA Rams. Michael Thomas abuses Marcus Peters every time they play. So you just got to stick it out. Plus, he's arguably one of the most valuable receivers, not only in the league, but in PPR leagues, like the one that I'm in. The person I'm playing this week has Michael Thomas, and listen, you want to start him. I mean, some of these are obvious, some aren't. But for wide receiver number 2, strike while the iron's hot indeed, because I'm going to go with Sammy Watkins, who last week was one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football, not only in regular standard scoring leagues, but in points per reception leagues as well. Sammy Watkins going up against the Oakland Raiders. Garyon Conley has this scary neck injury. Tyreek Hill is out, unfortunately, but that just opens the door for Sammy Watkins to be a big X factor for this team. And I think he's going to do pretty good. And then at tight end, start Travis Kelce, another obvious one right here. I don't trust Oakland's linebacking core. Travis Kelce only saw 3 catches last week. With Tyreek Hill going down, I think he's going to get more receptions. Sammy Watkins definitely will get going as well. I think Mecole Hardman gets some action this time. But when one big weapon goes down, the other sees an increase and an influctuation of receptions, and I think that's what's going to happen for Travis Kelce. For my flex position, it is going to be a wide receiver this week, and we have to go to the Oakland Raiders because we're going to be starting Tyrell Williams. He had a very good debut week against the Denver Broncos, a defense that I was high on that's kind of struggling at the moment, but, you know, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Tyrell Williams had a big week. Kansas City's defense is still atrocious. They do have this bend but don't break mentality with Steve Spagnuolo. However, that does not apply in fantasy. I think Tyrell Williams ends up having a pretty good day again. I don't know who's going to be lined up on him. Quite frankly, I don't care. He's 6'4". He's going to catch a lot of footballs, and he's a pretty good receiver for the Chargers. He's coming in here in Oakland, wide receiver number 1. A lot of distractions with AB still kind of in the air. Tyrell Williams is just channeling that and playing hard. Now for the defense that I am going to start, or that you should start, we're going to have to go to that Cleveland Browns. Their defense struggled last week against the Tennessee Titans, but if you guys have heard the news about Sam Darnold, he has mono, whatever the hell it's called, and he basically can't be anywhere near his teammates for a couple of weeks. He's targeting a Week 5 return. Cleveland, whose defense was atrocious last week, a lot of penalties. They're facing Trevor Siemian, who's a backup quarterback. If you have a defense that's playing a backup quarterback, unless it's Kansas City's defense against Gardner Minshew, I think it's safe to say put them in and see what they do against the New York Jets. And finally, for the kicker position, not that it really matters. Well, it does because kickers do matter, but in fantasy, I mean, just go with Justin Tucker. He's the best kicker. They're playing the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to have a rough week going up against Baltimore in Baltimore's home opener. Just put in Justin Tucker. Now for these sit-ems at quarterback, it's not going to be Lamar Jackson, I promise. It's going to be Mitchell Trubisky. He's going into Denver to take on the Broncos. Yes, obviously, I'm still high on Denver's defense. I think they're going to be top 10 in the league. Denver's at home. They were stunned by Oakland last week. Denver plays a lot better at home. However, Trubisky, he struggled against Green Bay in his home opener. It's not getting any easier. If you couldn't handle Za'Darius and Preston Smith, imagine what it's going to be like going up against Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. And I know, I said this last week when we talked about the Oakland Raiders. I don't care, man. I'm still going to say it because I have an opinion, and I am going to state my opinion, damn it. I think Trubisky's going to struggle. I think he'll show some better signs this week, but he's not a guy that I feel comfortable starting in fantasy. For running back number 1, honestly, does this dude even play anymore? Dion Lewis. I feel bad for everyone that drafted him a little bit higher than usual because he gets a lot of catches, because it's almost like they don't know how to use him. They don't know how to use them. Does anybody watch New England Patriots games? They're going up against the Colts. I think Derrick Henry's just going to pound it in the ground. But Dion Lewis needs to get going. You need to use this guy like how they used James White in New England, how they used Dion Lewis back in New England. Come on, man. Halfback number 2 that I'm going to be sitting is Rashad Penny. Don't play this guy. Chris Carson won't allow him to get on the field, and it's pretty obvious. Don't start him. I like Rashad Penny. I think he could be a pretty solid running back in his career, but Chris Carson won't allow this dude to get onto the field. Don't start Rashad Penny. At wide receiver number 1, he's questionable. He may not even play, but I'm going to throw him on this video anyway. Sterling Shepard against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. They showed it last week. They've been showing it last season. I don't trust Sterling Shepard, even if he's healthy or not, going up against Tre'Davious White, who I think is a pretty damn good corner in this league. And my second wide receiver, we got to go up to the Denver Broncos, who I just talked up, but I was mainly talking about their defense. Cortland Sutton. You know, he had a pretty good week against Oakland. Against Chicago, it could be a different story. Emmanuel Sanders will be in the slot. He'll probably be facing a lot of buster screen. Probably get a look from Eddie Jackson here and there. I think he's going to be in for a solid week. But when it comes to Courtland Sutton, you know, this is a guy who, he was pretty good last week. I think he's going to see a lot of Kyle Fuller on the outside, and he's going to have his hands full against the veteran corner. Now at tight end, this guy was invisible last week, and unless he shows me something this week, for now my sit-em at tight end is going to be Vance McDonald. I like Vance McDonald. He just didn't show me anything last week against the New England Patriots and against Bobby Wagner, Michael Kendricks, and KJ Wright. Good luck, Vance McDonald. That's all I got to say. For my flex position, we're going to go to running back, and I hate to do this, but David Johnson against Baltimore's defense, it's going to be tough. Baltimore has a really good run defense, some good linebacker play as well, despite C.J. Mosley not being there like everyone overreacted to. I mean, Baltimore's just going to eat. And the Arizona Cardinals just lost their right tackle, Marcus Gilbert, for half the season because he's going on IR. Their offensive line was already terrible prior to that, and I think Baltimore's run defense is going to eat up on David Johnson. Probably not a guy I would start. Now for the defense, I just talked about, Vance McDonald, Vance McDonald, don't play him against Seattle. Well, guess whose defense is on here? Seattle's. You want to know why? Because Pittsburgh is a different animal at home. It almost doesn't make sense. Start Ben Roethlisberger. Sit Vance McDonald. Sit Seattle's defense. Why would I be telling you that? Vance McDonald didn't show me anything. I think Bobby Wagner will play fine, but I'm really worried about Seattle's secondary. I shouldn't be because it's Pete Carroll, but it's also early in the season, and I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a pretty big game. I think James Washington ends up burning for a touchdown. Seattle's defense, I just don't trust this week. I think also, I'm going to predict Pittsburgh to win when it comes to my prediction video, which honestly, it's kind of tough because you can still go either way because of the X factor of Russell Wilson being their quarterback. But sit Seattle's defense this week. And finally, at kicker, this is easy because I don't see them scoring a whole lot of points. Jason Sanders against New England. We just talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick seeking permission to get a trade. It ain't looking good for Miami. You got New England coming in there. Antonio Brown might play. I didn't throw him anywhere on the start him or sit him list because I still don't know whether or not he'll play. He has these sexual assault allegations or whatever. I think it's all bullshit. I think the timing is just too good on the accuser's part. He gets to New England, a place where he can win, and now all these reports come out. But that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Jason Sanders going up against New England. I don't like it at all. That is the kicker that I would be sitting. But that's going to be it for today's video, man, for Fantasy Football Friday. Last week, not really the hottest of weeks, but this week I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable in my startums and sit-ems. Next Wednesday, it's something new that's going to come to the channel. Waiver Wire Wednesday. I missed out last week because I was at the doctor. I was like on meds or whatever. I had 2 shots, 1 in each hip. It was a rough day Wednesday. I couldn't really do much. I tried to play basketball that day. I wasn't allowed out of the house. I tried, man, okay? I even tried to sit down and record this video. I could barely speak, so it was just tough. But next Wednesday, we'll be doing a Waiver Wire Wednesday. I'll be talking about guys who may be available in most leagues or guys available in my league that you need to pick up. You know what I'm saying? Because I may not pick him up because I like my roster, even though Christian McCaffrey and Mike Evans kind of shafted me this week. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, more like Christian McShafted me this week in fantasy. It's going to be tough, but hopefully you guys enjoy. Peace out and best of luck in your fantasy leagues, unless you're playing me. Peace.